Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Wrap, brought to you by Michigan Medicine Headlines. I'm Dan Ellman with the Department of Communication.
And I'm Jeremy Fallis, Dan's second half of this dynamic duo, also with the Department of Communication. Today, we are celebrating Nutrition Month by discussing the milk room and the important role it plays for patients at Health.
Now, before we get into that conversation, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. You can get caught up on any episode of The Wrap you may have missed. They're on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or your favorite podcast hosting platform. New shows can also be found on the Michigan Medicine YouTube channel and as part of the Headlines Week in Review.
And on that note, let's bring in our guests today, Sarah Percy and Roberta McNeish. First, let's have the two of you tell our listeners and viewers what role you play here at Michigan Medicine.
Hi, thanks for having us today. My name is Sarah Percy. I'm the Associate Director of Nutrition Services. My oversight here at Michigan Medicine includes our dietitian teams and the milk room.
Hi, my name is Roberta McNeish. I am the milk room manager, and the milk room is in the Children and Women's Hospital. I have been with Michigan Medicine going into my 15th year, and I'm so happy to be here today and share the milk room with everyone.
Outstanding. Well, we are happy that both of you are here joining us today. Now, Sarah, let's start with you. Can you give a brief overview? What exactly is the milk room?
Yeah, so the milk room is a unit within the Patient Food and Nutrition Services Department. And then it's within the Nutrition Services portion of that department, which is sort of the clinical arm of Patient Food and Nutrition Services. The milk room itself is an aseptic, food-safe environment where our team of dietetic technicians, managed by Roberta, prepare standard and specialized formulas for various patients across the institution. And the milk room is a 24/7 operation located in C&W. So because we have dietetic technicians manning the milk room around the clock, that really ensures that our patients receive the nutrition that they need no matter the time of day.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the patients that the milk room serves?
Sure. The milk room serves our pediatric and adult patients receiving formula, donor and fortified breast milk, and oral supplements. So not only do we deliver to the patients admitted to Children and Women's Hospital, but we also service acute nutrition needs of pediatric patients in our ambulatory care clinics. And we mix specialized formulas when needed for patients in the adult hospitals, which includes both the University Hospital and the Cardiovascular Center. So the milk room really services 3 hospitals and multiple ambulatory care clinics across the institution.
I might add also that of those that patient population in the Children and Women's Hospital, we provide nutrition for everything outside of TPN. And those of you that are familiar with that know that's a venous nutrition source and or food service. So having said that, we provide services from our little milk room to 50 to 60% of the patient population. And presently, we are providing breast milk storage and fortification services for 85 patients within the Children and Women's Hospital. The other patient population that we also service would be the cardiac patients, and we would skim breast milk for them. And we do that for inpatients as well as outpatients because that is kind of an extensive treatment series.
Yeah, that's quite the operation you've got going there. Can you talk, Roberta, a little bit more about the type of training required and the skills that are utilized on a daily basis by the dietetic technicians?
Yes, I'd be happy to. The only educational requirement for the milk room is an associate's degree. However, having said that, everyone in the milk room has either a bachelor's and or master's degree. And that's not a requirement, but they seem to be drawn to this type of service. We also have 2 certified lactation consultants that work in the milk room, not as lactation consultants, but as technicians. The new hires go through a very extensive training process of training modules, which take about 6 hours to get through all of those. And then they do hands-on training. And that training can last approximately 6 months for initial training so that they can do various jobs within the milkroom. But there are so many nuances to things that happen on a daily basis that they can be learning a lot of things for up to a year or more. It's not an entry-level job, so it does require some specific training and the ability to comprehend the learning of those tasks. It includes a lot of training in our aseptic techniques, and that's very important so that we don't spread bacteria to our very, very immunocompromised patients, babies as well as older patients. Accurately measuring and weighing on a gram scale. We have metabolic, ketogenic, which those are pretty specific areas of nutritional needs, and they have to be very, very attentive to those measuring components of those formulas. They have to have a very keen attention to detail and know how to do every aspect of the milkroom. So it's a pretty diverse area and requires a pretty unique person to be able to understand and work well in the milkroom.
I know that maybe this doesn't apply to everywhere in our clinical settings, but what does a typical day look like in the milkroom? What can try and tell somebody that's never been there before what they would see if they happen to be there working with you?
Okay, so what's a typical day? That's like saying what's normal, what's normal. So a typical day, we have actually 10 positions that would be covered on a typical 24-hour period. I might add that the milkroom started in 2011, so we've been helping our little victors grow since 2011. And we were the first 24/7 milkroom operation in the country that we are aware of. So a typical day would include one position would be reviewing the breast milk orders. All of our tasks are driven by the provider's written orders in my chart in a work list. So that work list is our driving force. We would review the orders in the work list. So we do breast milk delivery twice a day in 12-hour batches. We do our formula deliveries once a day and are ready to feed oral supplements and tube feedings once a day. So that would involve preparation, like there's mirror positions. An AM person would reconcile and review all the breast milk orders and get that prepared. Another position would be thawing the breast milk. Another position would be preparing all the mixed formulas and tube feedings. Another person would be reconciling all the orders and being set up in a delivery cart to deliver the oral supplements ready to feed and tube feedings. And in between all of that, there are cleaning assignments, there are stocking assignments. We have to stock all of our products daily, inventory and stock. The skimming of the milk on an as needed basis. We never know. We may have one patient that we have to skim milk for, we may have 6. And then we may have an outpatient coming by to have their milk skimmed. And then patients, when they discharge, we pack their milk in coolers so that they can safely get it home and in their own freezers. So, and then the phone calls that come through requesting 20 cal breast milk for being delivered to bedside and various other questions that might arise. So in between their regular tasks, then we have all those other tasks that are kind of unknown, how many we will have and how many drop-offs we'll have at the window. So typical day, and then we may have a freezer fail, or we may have Roberta, the dishwasher is broken, those things, random things. The printer stopped working. So those are typical days in the milkroom.
Yeah, and if I can just add to what Roberta said, it is interesting, the milk room, because it has components of a food service operation as well as components of a clinical operation. And so on a daily basis, the team is really navigating both those components of the operation. And as someone who comes into the milk room to check on the team, I would say that a typical day in the milk room really looks like a bit of a dance. As Roberta mentioned earlier in the interview, it is a very small space. So she called it our I think you said tiny milk room or little milk room. The actual physical space that our dietetic technicians are working in is very limited, and it really is a well-oiled machine at any given time. And Roberta mentioned thawing the breast milk. So just to put some context to that, that's not like we're taking everybody's milk out of the freezer and thawing it all at once. We're taking one patient's milk and thawing that milk and preparing that milk for that patient. So we never want any type of cross contamination. It's the same with the formula preparation. Roberta mentioned ketogenic, metabolic. We have patients who have allergies. So when our dietetic technicians are preparing a formula, whatever that formula is, they have a certain order in which they prepare the formula in, so that we're making sure that those who have sort of those allergies and those specialized formulas, those are prepared first. The area is still clean between types of formulas to make sure that there's no cross contamination, but there's also a very mindful order in which we prepare each formulation so that we minimize risk to the patient, and we make sure that we're providing each patient with exactly what it is that is in my chart and what is ordered. And that's kind of the purpose of the milk room, is that we're mixing things and preparing these formulations within a safe, clean environment rather than at the bedside or in an area where some sort of outside contaminant can impact the nutrition that is being received by patients who really are immunocompromised and need to make sure that their food source is healthy and clean and safe.
One thing that I like to share, I think numbers say a lot about the volume of work that we do. So we fortify approximately, and when I say fortify, that means adding extra components to breast milk to increase the calories. So we fortify on average 50 babies twice a day. And our mixed formulas and tube feedings would be about 100 a day. And then we also, another key part is how we get those products to the patients. So we do the breast milk delivery twice a day, once in the morning around 5:30 a.m. And then we do all the formula and tube feeding mixtures with the breast milk fortified in the PM around the same time, 5:30. And those are delivered to each individual patient room and placed in the refrigerator. We do the patient, make sure we cross-check to make sure we're delivering to the correct patients. And then we not only deliver on a regular basis, we also do what we call time critical. So if a new patient is admitted and needs product, or an order is changed in any way and they need to get that started, we will do that on a time critical basis. The Children and Women's Hospital is over 1 million square feet, and we walk every inch of that. We try to share the delivery so that one person isn't doing all of that. But if you want to go on a good weight loss plan, come and work in the milk room. You do a lot of walking.
So it's very clear that obviously the work that you do is a logistical and scientific challenge that you guys step up to on a daily basis. And it's really incredible what you do. And I think that, I wanted to end with this question because, we've been talking now at length about the work that you do, but I still think that there are a lot of misperceptions out there about what both the milk room does on a daily basis and what nutrition services does at Michigan Medicine. So I wanted to give both of you the opportunity to talk about some of those biggest misperceptions. Roberta, let's start with you.
So one thing that is often perceived about the milk room is that we only provide service to the NICU or babies within the hospital. And as I spoke to earlier, we provide service to 50 to 60% of the entire inpatient population, as well as Sarah had mentioned earlier, outpatient and some patients in UH and CVC in the adult hospitals. It's not an entry-level job. A lot of people think, oh, I would love, Roberta, can I get a job in the milk room? I would love to just be in a contained area and do what you do. or what your staff does. And when I kind of go into a little depth and detail about what we do and the amount of movement that we do and getting stock, et cetera, for our area, it kind of puts it back into perspective. We are not able, one thing, we'll get calls, can you please bring this, can we, to a patient, this patient would like to try this product, could you please bring that? Or this patient's been on this particular product at home and we need it bedside. We operate just like a pharmacy would. The order, it's medical food. The order has to be in my chart or written by a provider before we can deliver any products to a patient's bedside. And then we have to verify that order before we can do that. And the other thing that we get calls and people dropping by thinking we are a donor milk bank where we accept donations of milk. And we do not. We're not a donor milk bank. We actually provide donor milk. We have a certain criteria for babies that when they meet that criteria, they can receive donor milk. And we do purchase our donor milk from a certified donor milk bank where it's heat pasteurized and safe to use. So I think those are the main things.
I think a common misperception about our units is that they're separate units. I think a lot of units within the institution are divided by service. So sort of medical service, whereas within patient food and nutrition services, we're servicing all patients across all units. So it takes a great deal of coordination between our dietitians, our milk room diet techs, our food service partners in the kitchen, to coordinate the nutrition care for our patients, keeping in mind that our team is focused on every patient, every medical service, every unit. And I think sometimes that is such a large scale of a patient population that we're servicing, the behind the scenes and the operations and the planning and the processes that go into place to keep those systems running smoothly is really quite astonishing. So I just think, I don't know if it's a misconception, but I just think it's maybe something that folks don't necessarily think about when they're engaging with one unit or another within patient food or nutrition services.
That's incredibly helpful information. And thank you so much, Sarah and Roberta, for your insight today and helping us to better understand the milk room and to celebrate National Nutrition Month. And we want to remind our listeners and viewers, if you want to learn more about the milk room and the team behind it, go to mmheadlines.org. That's mmheadlines.org.
All right, it's time for everyone's favorite segment, the lightning round. We're going to ask one of our guests 4 quick-fire questions they haven't seen before. Now, Roberta, your March Madness bracket is doing the worst, so you are going to be in the hot seat today. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay, in the spirit of Nutrition Month, what is one meal that you could find yourself eating over and over again and never get sick of?
Oh my goodness, I love all food, but I think my very most favorite food would be crab legs with butter and bread with butter and a nice glass of white wine.
I think you like butter is what I'm getting out of that conversation. All right, next one's a little bit more serious. What is the best piece of advice someone has given you when it comes to your work?
I think the best piece of advice when it comes to working is come into work, ready to face the day. I know we all have issues outside of work, but I think that work is kind of an escape from all those other issues. And the work that we do in the milk room is probably so gratifying because we are not bearers of bad news. We're simply taking in milk, keeping it safe in storage. We're feeding patients, helping them grow so they can be discharged. And that's one reason I am interested in nutrition, because I like to cook, I like to eat, and I like to feed people and hear them love it. So I think a good piece of advice is come into work with a good attitude, ready to work, and enjoy what you're doing and let it show.
Wonderful. It's Women's History Month. Who is one woman that you would say has had the biggest impact on your life?
Historically, my mother. My mother. My mother was an amazing woman. She has passed, but she's with me all the time. She actually started out to get her pilot's license, met my father, who was a dairy farmer, married him, which shifted her whole life, and had 6 children. And she did everything flawlessly and without complaining. And I always thought if I could grow up and be like my mom. And I remember she always had it together too. And she always looked lovely. And she and my dad had the most loving relationship. And I know that takes both people to do, but she was a big part of that, having raised 6 children on a dairy farm. That's quite a feat, and never complaining.
That's amazing. That was beautiful. I
Yeah.
feel like we could do a whole podcast just on the story of your family. That's outstanding.
Yeah, so
Uh,
as a little side note, so I
yeah,
was raised on a dairy farm and now I work in the milk room.
it's perfect. It all comes full circle.
It
Yeah,
does.
yeah. All right. Finally, March is National Reading Month. What is the best book you've ever read, or who is your favorite author, or both?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not much of a reader. I read very short things because in my life, having worked and raising children, I've never had a great deal of time to just sit down and read a book. So I now, if you ask me where I'd like to travel, that'd be great.
All right. Where is your dream destination?
Okay, here we go. So I have traveled to I need one more continent. I need Australia. I have all other 6 continents, and that is my dream. And I'm really, really working on my husband to get to Australia next year.
So have you been to Antarctica?
I have.
Wow.
I have.
Jeremy,
That's
there's
fun.
goals for you there.
Yeah.
I have not been to all 7 or 6, so that would be tremendous. Well, thank you, Roberta, for playing along and sharing this information about the milk room and yourself and your wonderful family. If you want to learn more about the work performed in the milk room, be sure to visit mmheadlines.org.
All right. While you're at Headlines, you can check out other featured stories from this week, including a celebration of Women's History Month here at Michigan Medicine. You can find that story and video and much, much more at mmheadlines.org.
All right, Dan, we asked Roberta about her favorite book or author in honor of Reading Month. Obviously, she didn't answer, but that's okay. What would your answer be?
Yeah, so I will answer for her. Her favorite author should be Eric Larson, of course. If you don't know who Eric Larson is, he does nonfiction, but he writes it in a way that it's almost like a novel, like a fiction book. Like it's amazing how much detail and research went into it. My favorite book of his was Devil in the White City, which was about the World's Fair in Chicago in 1893 and a serial killer who lived nearby. And it's just a fascinating book. And again, the level of detail that he went into, and I'm just sort of a history nerd, so I love that kind of stuff. And I know he's coming out with a new one that I'm really excited about next month, and it's about the lead up to the Civil War, which is one of my favorite eras of history too. So I'm really looking forward to that. What about you, Jeremy?
If it's anything history related or sports related, generally I enjoy it. Grew up as a history major, and so anything by Michael or Jeff Shara or Stephen Ambrose, I always enjoyed. You could think of any Civil War, World War One, or World War II book. I probably have either read it or at least skimmed it at some point in my life. More recently, I haven't really read that much stuff. I would say probably some golf course architecture books, which would be really boring to most people. But I enjoy Tom Doak's Little Red Book of Golf Course Architecture. It's like 190 pages, and it's done like little bullet points, so it makes it really easy and breezy to read through. And it's anecdotes from around the world in a game that I enjoy not only just playing, but also learning more about.
I mean, I would say that sounds fascinating. It doesn't really sound fascinating, but I'm glad that you enjoy it, and that's all that matters. All right, it's time for the weekly trivia contest. This week's question is, how many graduating medical students learned their future destinations at the recent Match Day celebration? Once again, how many graduating medical students learned their future destinations at the recent Match Day celebration? You can find the answer in headlines, and once you know it, send it to headlines@med.umich.edu for the chance to win a prize.
And that is all we have for today. Thank you again to Sarah and Roberta for joining us. And thanks as always to all our listeners and viewers for everything you do for our patients, families, and each other. We'll see you next time.